Frank, this episode of Phone Booth Fighting is brought to our loyal listeners by lowtnation.com. For all those guys who are getting a little up there in age, you're not in your early 20s anymore, maybe you're in your late 30s, maybe you're easing into your 40s. You don't have the get up and go like you used to, but you want to get it back. That's where lowtnation.com comes in. What do they need to do?
Well, you just give Brandon there a call over at Low T Nation, and he'll give a consultation for free on the phone. After that, if he decides that maybe the next steps are going to be necessary, you'll go down to a LabCorp. They have one in every state in the U.S.
Doesn't matter where I live.
No, it doesn't matter. They almost have them in almost every major city. You'll go down there. That's the most effort and time-consuming aspect of this whole project or whole endeavor. After that, they'll get your readings. A physician will look over it and be able to decide what you need to make it to where you will be able to feel better, look better, and perform better.
Go to the website, lowtnation.com. The phone number is right there. And then after that, the product is shipped directly to my doorstep, right?
One of the most important aspects is not only getting the right medication at the right levels, but at consistent times to make sure you're not dipping and flying around. And it's delivered right to your door. You don't have to continue to hold an appointment once a week, make it to the doctor. You just, you'll have it at the front door, and it'll be taken care of from there.
We are starting to see photographic evidence of this. When Brandon was in a couple of weeks ago, he brought photographs of you guys, of the Phone Booth Fighting listeners who have already benefited from lowtnation.com's treatment, and the results are evident. And we saw guys on the younger end of the spectrum. He had one guy that was 62 years old. That looks just in phenomenal shape. So you could be next. Give them a call. Won't cost you anything to have that telephone conversation with them and see about taking it from there. Go to lowtnation.com and tell them Phone Booth Fighting sent you. Frank, we are once again gathered together in the Bent Pixel studios here in suburban Las Vegas. Bent Pixels for all of your YouTube administration needs. They are the guys who help us hold it together on our YouTube platform, and they do the same thing for our buddies Forrest Griffin and TJ Lavin with their Anything Goes podcast. They have helped Fighter and the Kid. I got the reference originally from our buddy Brendan Schaub, and Bent Pixels has been hugely beneficial to us in terms of growing that YouTube presence. So if you're like us and you have a need for that sort of thing, you should definitely visit bentpixels.com and see if their service is right for you. We broadcast from their studios, and that's where we find ourselves. Once again, we have a big show coming up. We are going to talk some boxing a little bit later on. We're going to talk some Frank Mir training camp a little bit later on with some of the insight on that, principles that are involved in that. Yeah, absolutely. We all spent the day with Frank Mir training camp today. I even took the day off from the brothel to be a more involved part of it.
Day in the life of Mir.
Yes. We're going to talk about UFC 222 that takes place this weekend. We're actually going to kick off the show with that because I was down at Media Day at the MGM Grand today talking to a couple of fighters. I talked to Cyborg, Frankie Edgar, and we're going to play that audio here in just a minute. I do want to make a quick plug, Frank, for my comedy show this coming Sunday at the LA Comedy Club inside the Stratosphere Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. 8 p.m. this Sunday. If you're in town for the fights and you're still here on Sunday night, come on out and see me. If you'd like to be on the guest list, just hit me up. Email me at phoneboothfighting@gmail.com. How about that? Just tell me you want to be on the guest list, and I'll put you and your friends on there just because you are a listener to this program. That photo up there on our big screen is from last weekend. Myself and Eric Knowles and We'll See over there on the left is on Modern Family. That club last weekend was as full as I've ever seen it. They had to pull the chairs out of the dressing room. You've been in the dressing room, Frank. You've worked that club. They had to pull the chairs out of the dressing room because they had to put chairs in the middle of the aisle. They were turning people away at the door. Wow. It was a tremendous night of comedy. So let's see if we can do it 2 weeks in a row. If you're going to be out, let me know. You're on my guest list. phoneboothfighting@gmail.com or any of the social media. Just hit me up. I'd love to have you out as my guest. All right. Frank, UFC 222 is this Saturday. It is maybe not the card we were hoping we were going to get, because I think a lot of people were hoping that it was going to be the season of super fights. Of course, we've got Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic made champion versus champion. I think a lot of people were hoping they were going to get, on the female side, Cyborg fighting Amanda Nunes, champion versus champion. And that didn't end up happening. Maybe sometime in the future. But instead, we are getting Chris Cyborg versus Yana Konnichiwa. In fact, if you want to there, Mikey, pull up the UFC card. Just go to UFC. Well, actually, we'll just do that. Actually, I tell you, before you do that, pull up. Just go to UFC.com and pull up the card. We'll go back to the photos here in a second, because I did get a chance to visit with Cyborg for a minute. But this fight, Frank, if you are not particularly familiar with Yana Konnichiwa, don't feel bad, because it just means maybe you haven't been watching a ton of Invicta, although I do, so I was familiar with her. But she has claimed their vacant bantamweight title over there. Yep, there she is. She fought Tanya Evinger a pair of times. If you remember, we talked about it because the first time she fought Tanya Evinger, it was controversial because Evinger Konnichiwa had Evinger in an armbar, and Evinger put her foot on Yana's face to break the armbar. Didn't stomp on her. It was standing. Tanya was standing. She didn't stomp on her head, but she pushed off of it, which is legal. The referee mistakenly called it illegal, and I believe as it went, reset the submission hold, and then Tanya ended up submitting. I think that was eventually turned over to a no contest. They rematched. Tanya won the rematch. Now, in her most recent fight in Invicta, she claimed the vacant bantamweight title. But here's what Yana has going against her. She is, before I get to what's got going against her, her background, she's Russian. She's been training mixed martial arts since a very young age. She has a boxing background, but I believe has been training since something like age 12. So pretty seasoned fighter, but moving up in weight to take on Cyborg at 145. Brought into this fight on somewhat shorter notice because the Amanda Nunes fight couldn't be made. There are a lot of reasons for her to be the underdog in this fight. It's conversely not going to be maybe a huge win for Cyborg if she wins, because she's coming into this being such a favorite, but certainly plenty to lose if she were to be upset by Konnichiwa. So, I don't see this as being the fight that's going to dethrone Cyborg. Any thoughts to the contrary?
No, I wish I would have a little bit more information on Yana. I could give a little bit more of an intellectual or intelligent feedback. So I'm just going to have to go off of what you said. This will be the first time I've seen Yana fight. Yeah,
and it's just one of those things where even with a professional level skill set, I think that all the things that make Cyborg, the size, the power, the experience, those are things that not a lot of fighters have answers for, and in this case, I don't think Konnichiwa has answers for that either. But let's listen to a little bit of Cyborg. I did get a chance to talk with her today, and here's what she had to tell me. Chris, you're the champion of a newer division that hasn't had as much time to get as many fighters into it. Of course, we're seeing a situation now where somebody comes from an Invicta background outside the organization. Does that, do you have to then, as the champion of the women's featherweight division, keep more of an eye outside of the UFC to see who might be coming in, as opposed to maybe the way some other champions do?
For me, I think I have to continue training, but I think UFC now try and find the girls 145, because this is something I really asking for, because I wanted my division continue growing. I not just be the face in my division. You know, and then okay, one day I want to retire, then I have a division, I have girls. I want to continue to open the door for all the women. You know, I fight a lot for the heavy division. Now I'm going to continue fight for having more girls. And now if they open the door, I think the 145 pound are going to be the biggest division in my category in the UFC, because the girls are going to cut the 135 a lot, and because the new rules, the commission now, you have to be 10% closer weight. The week they fight have to be 10%, and the day you fight have to be 10%. If you go up too much, you have to change your division because the health for your body. And I think this is a big help for all the fighters continue to fight long term.
Does the UFC communicate with you? Do they tell you that they're out there actively seeking to populate the women's featherweight division to fill it? Do you hear that from them?
No, hear what?
Does the UFC communicate with you in terms of, do they talk to you about how they're out there trying to bring more women into the women's featherweight division?
Then try, like they sign Megan Anderson, they have girls in it, but they have a girls in other event. But for sure, if they open the door, the girls are gonna finish the contract. They're gonna come to UFC. You know, it's a big platform. I think all the fighters are gonna be there one day, and the opportunity, if the opportunity open, for sure they're gonna come.
Less for me. You know, this is the second big pay-per-view that you've headlined, and is there a sense of satisfaction that the battle has been won, where no one's questioning whether or not you can headline a big card anymore? That question's been answered.
I think the last fight with Hall, I think people really happy. I think people, but you know, people already follow my career a long time. When I fought Gina Carano, we make the biggest number too. I think all my fans follow me from the Strike Force, continue follow me all my career, and I feel just very blessed that all my fans love to watch me.
Building on that,
there we go.
If this
That's Cyborg. You know, I think, Frank, and that last question that I asked her, I really think that, you know, after seeing her in that fight with Holly Holm, which was, you know, I mean, she won, but it was competitive. We saw her main event. That all these questions, I remember when these questions used to be asked about when the UFC would debate, should we even sign Cyborg? And if we did sign her, would enough people know who she was? Or could she carry, you know, back then it was the Ronda Rousey show. You know, it was all about trying to make that fight. Now, Ronda Rousey is not fighting in the UFC anymore, and I think Cyborg has come in and shown herself to be a bona fide star. I think if there's a challenge to sell on this pay-per-view on Saturday night, it's not because Cyborg is headlining it. It's just that enough might not be known about her opponent.
I 100% agree with you. I think Cyborg, you know, is the reason why they even created the division, was because of so much attention she has.
Yeah.
I think that she's just as popular as Ronda as far as name value. The issue is that she just has no one on a dance partner.
Yeah.
And many great fighters will tell you throughout the years that it takes that other person to really sell or to make a card or a fight memorable. You know, you always hear that, what would Ali be without Frazier, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, is that there is no other fighter at 45. You're having girls move up in weight class. There is no competition for it. It's almost kind of like it's a foregone conclusion in most people's minds that before she walks in there, she's going to be victorious.
Yeah, she may have to just be patient and be there long enough for the buildup of other potential stars to catch up with her. That's the problem right now with the women's featherweight division. To me, if we can go back to our UFC card here, Mikey, to me, the real intriguing fight is going to be the co-main event, which is Frankie Edgar against Brian Ortega. Now, this fight was originally supposed to be Frankie Edgar and Max Holloway for the featherweight title. I mean, that's a fight that I think everybody wanted to see. Holloway got hurt. Frankie, who is the #2 challenger for the featherweight title, could have easily just sat out and waited for his title shot. He's basically putting his title shot on the line here against #3 ranked Brian Ortega, T-City, unnecessarily, because he could just sit out. But to Frankie's credit, he wants to stay active, he wants to stay busy, and I think this is a real sleeper of a fight. And it's sleeper only in the sense that I don't think people have to be sold on the idea of watching Frankie Edgar, but Brian Ortega is a submission specialist. The T in T-City is for Triangle City. He's got a real tight triangle, and I think a real up-and-coming fighter. I don't know that on Saturday night he is able to get past Frankie Edgar at this point in his career, but nonetheless, nothing wrong with this fight as a last-minute replacement. Go ahead, and I got a couple of questions in with Frankie Edgar. Go ahead and play those, Mikey.
Thank you. In terms of taking a compelling fight like this and staying active versus waiting for a title fight, with all the prevalency of the interim belts these days, do you think that fans are appreciating taking compelling fights versus maybe the title fights not meaning as much with so many interims?
Yeah, I think fans just want to see us fight. You know, my fans don't want to see me not fight. You know, maybe some of my friends are telling me to wait. Shit, you know, what are you doing? Wait, man. But they're not me. So, no, I think the real fans just want to see guys fight. You know, they want to see good fights, titles. You know, with all these interim stuff and everything, and people picking and choosing nowadays is. It's definitely, you know, put a little bit of a stain, I think, on this sport. So, you know, if I can go out there and just put on shows for everybody, that's a good thing.
With Ortega being known for his triangle, for his submission skills, do you see any quality with him being a little bit of a throwback fighter in the sense of having that particular specialty, you know, something we maybe don't see so much anymore?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, this sport was founded on that type of style, like a Royce Gracie, you know, and, you know, he is a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guy, kind of like myself. So yeah, I do kind of consider him a throwback a little bit. Plus, he seems like not like these young guys that are, you know, willing to get on the mic and cut a promo. He just kind of lets his fighting do his talking. You know, it seems like a respectful, old school kind of guy, and you got to respect that.
You're a cardio king. Do you think that he's able to hang with you no problem, or have you seen anything in watching his fights that makes you think you might be a different kind of cardio test for him?
Yeah, you know, I don't really ever look at someone else and say, you know, my cardio is going to be better than their cardio. I just know that my cardio is going to be good. I worry about my, you know, I just know I'm ready to go 100%, foot in the gas, all the way through.
You talked about...
it's Frankie Edgar there. Always fun to watch Frankie Edgar. Nothing wrong with that fight. But I would really love to see him in Holloway. So I hope that fight doesn't. It's like when we've lost Khabib and Tony Ferguson before. You know, okay, I understand. Maybe somebody gets hurt. Maybe somebody's got to fight somebody else. But let's just hope that eventuality somehow stays intact. Have you seen much of Brian Ortega?
No, another fighter I haven't seen a lot of.
Yeah. He's a really solid up and comer. And then I also talked for a second with Mike Pyle. This is the last audio clip we'll hear. But did you know that Mike Pyle? Do you know him very well?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's been around forever. Yeah. He is 42 years old. Saturday night is going to be his 42nd fight. It's going to be his last fight. He's announcing his retirement. He actually hasn't fought in about a year, or a little longer, I believe. But and he suffered a bad knockout the last time. So, and I think the fight before that he got knocked out as well. So it's kind of one of those things, I think, where a lot of people thought he might have already been retired after the knockouts, but he did want one more shot at it. So a way to kind of go out in his adopted hometown here of Las Vegas. So here's me talking to Mike Pyle about his 42nd and very last fight of his career.
UFC 122. Mike, big night, Saturday night. You've already announced that this is going to be your last fight. We talk all the time with fighters, especially veteran fighters, about, okay, so-and-so has announced they're going to retire. What are your thoughts on announcing it ahead of time versus, you know, being spontaneous about it? Did you have any opinions about that in the years past, you know, when you've watched other fighters be in this position?
No, not at all. I wanted to bring everyone with the journey. You know, it's been a great journey throughout my career, so why not bring the fans and everyone else, the coaching staff, everybody. You know, it's known that this is going to be the last one, and everybody come along for the ride, and no spontaneous decisions. This was decided a while back, so yeah, just want to bring everybody along.
Does it feel any, you know, watching guys do this throughout the years, you've been around so long, does it feel any different than you thought it might be watching maybe a lot of your friends be in that position beforehand?
I mean, it definitely feels different. It's a great feeling. It's a feeling I never had, obviously, because I never retired before. But this whole ride through this camp has been great. So relaxed about it all. I just know where the end is. I'm making the decisions. I made the decision, you know.
Yeah.
So I like it. I like it on my terms.
Yeah. One of the things that's always said about you, and I'm sure you've heard it, is that that in the gym you're one of the toughest guys anybody's ever encountered. Do you like the fact that there's kind of a myth, not a myth, but a legend like that's been able to follow you? It's not necessarily, there's not a title belt that comes with it, but there's an awful lot of respect that comes with it. Sense of accomplishment there?
Definitely. You know, I'm a pioneer of the sport, and yeah, you get, if you peg that, then you are. As long as I'm not pegged as an asshole.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah. You know, what about the arc of MMA? Because you were there for, no holds barred. You've seen the arc. You've seen the popularity. Anything now at the end of your career that you've seen that maybe looks like it's circled back a little bit at all? Anything new anything old that seems new again? Maybe?
You mean technique-wise and things like that?
Either technique-wise, popularity-wise, any kind of thing that reminds you of the old days. Or you think it's just been a constant?
Oh, it's been definitely been a constant thing. Yeah, moving. Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad to be a part of that. Seeing the changes in the coaching, how the fighters that's been there and done that are now coaching and have a great perspective on things and a great way to approach things, and you can see that in the fighters now, and everything's more well-rounded in the training rather than just boxing. It's all the progressions that we've seen over the years, and that I've got to see personally over the years.
Yeah.
So I can see all those changes moving forward. Definitely.
We're good there. I got in a couple more questions with him, but Mike Pyle, I've always liked watching Mike Pyle fight. It's amazing to realize how long he's been around when you really look back on it. And it'd be nice to see him go out on a win. Where do you fall on that, Frank? We've talked about it before, but the idea of a lot of people will say, "Oh gosh, if you already got 1 foot out the door, if you're already saying this is probably going to be the last one, then you're probably your odds of winning are greatly diminished." Do you think there can be a scenario where a guy says it's the last, it's definitely the last, everything's planned out, but they go in and still have a 100% competitive chance?
You know what? I think in the past I wouldn't have thought that. I thought it was a bad idea to retire before you have your last fight.
Yeah.
But being around Pyle over at Dolce's gym, seeing his training going up, and just his air of confidence and just the way he's carrying himself, and then even just right now listening to that interview, you see somebody who actually is gaining confidence that they're kind of going out on their own terms, and I think that allows him to continue to fight super hard in the fight and give his best. But I think I actually feel that this is not a bad mindset for him to have.
Yeah.
I think this would be very conducive to having a very strong showing.
All right. I also turned him on to the fact when we were off the air that he and I share the same birthday, September 18th. And I realized, remember how excited you were on that overnight car ride when we went to California, and I turned you on to the story of Patty Hearst and the Siboney's Liberation Army and her abduction?
Yeah.
Well, CNN just did this 6-part documentary on it, which you've got to watch. Okay. You will be, even as much as I knew about it, I learned so much more about it. You need to watch it, and we got to talk about it on the show because it is fascinating.
All right, I'm in.
But I discovered when I watched the documentary that she was actually arrested on Mike Pyle's birthday. So I told him to watch it, and maybe if we get both of you to watch it, he wants to come in and do the podcast. Maybe we'll have Mike Pyle in to talk about the Siboney's Liberation Army. All right, Frank, joining us in the Bent Pixel studios for this segment, striking coach to the stars Angelo Reyes is back, and the sneaker black belt, your sparring partner, James Horne, is here. Good to see you, James.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate you guys having me on.
A recently converted vegan. So James and I
about the nacho cheese vegan style.
Yeah, James and I are we got that bond now.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. The vegan bond.
We see each other and hardcore vegan talk starts breaking out. Yeah.
And you have a teammate now.
I do.
I don't feel so bad now. Like when we're talking about this Saturday after the kids wrestling tournament, I'm finally going to go eat hamburgers and have a cheat meal for about an hour.
Yeah.
And, hamburgers kind of leave you guys out. Normally in the past, I feel like, well, I'm not going to invite Richard. But now the two of you can
That's right.
team up, go get some burgers, vegan stuff.
Absolutely.
We'll bring our vegan burgers. I like the fact how you go, I'm going to have a cheat meal for about an hour. Like you put a time limit on it. It's not per meal.
You've seen me eat, right?
Per hour. Yeah.
It's as much.
Some
as you
people
can
get a
it
cheat
at
day.
Yeah.
I get a cheat hour.
I'm gonna allow
Because I can do a
myself.
lot of damage, dude.
I'm only going to allow myself to eat for an hour. Yeah.
If cows ever take over the world,
Yeah.
I'm on the most wanted list.
Well, we are all together today because I took the day off from work, so the brothel had to do without me to dedicate myself to Team Mirror and podcasting.
Well, Love
And,
Ranch ain't doing much anyways right now, right?
That's right. It was a good time to take a day
Sitting
off.
around making signs.
Yeah, one of our. Well, I don't hear Angelo, by the way. We may need to bring him back. I may eat my words, but we need to bring Angelo's level up a little bit, at least.
Did you
for
hear
right
that,
now.
audience?
Yeah.
They're bringing my level up.
For now, yeah. You're on a probational increase right now.
I like that. That's true.
Maybe,
Probation, man.
yeah, maybe his game comes up a little bit. One of our we talked about this on the last episode, but the Love Ranch's license has been temporarily revoked, so I'm only having to concern myself with actually a third of the hookers that I normally have to concern myself with, because at Alien we only have the 5 as opposed to the 10 at Love Ranch. So yeah,
I saw the picture. You said they're making signs now, right?
they are. They're making signs in protest for picket lines.
Just a real quick summary. What happened? Why did?
Sure. So thanks for subscribing to the
thanks for
podcast,
listening.
James.
This is our last episode, S.
Yeah. And no, it's fine.
James.
It's fine. No, what happened was
You still got the vegan thing, man.
yeah.
Hey, man, plant-based.
What happened was the fire marshal found some concerns, and it wasn't like there's exposed wiring or the ceiling's fallen in or anything. What had happened was part of the structure out there is modular housing. And if you make modifications after market to modular housing, you have to have, approval, inspections, and this sort of stuff. So our owner is saying that those were done to specs. The fire marshal is saying they weren't, but the curveball in the whole thing is that our owner is running for political office out there. So, you announce you're running for political office, you make political enemies, and lo and behold, 2 days later, the fire marshal shows up when your opponent may have, phoned in a complaint.
Well, tell them what's
weird.
missing.
What's
What's the
missing?
infraction?
What's
What's the infraction that for the code that was violated?
Well, it's the modular housing has to have a sticker on it. That's what you're
On
talking
the
about.
bottom
right?
of the thing where no one can see it,
Yeah.
there's a sticker that's missing.
Yeah.
That's what got to shut it down.
Yeah, so they got to crawl up underneath there, and if there's not a sticker, then we have to come up with a sticker. So, anyway, it's got the
So obvious.
yeah, it's got the ladies all in a tizzy because Frank could fully comprehend the magnitude of the situation. I said, Frank, this would be like getting booked on a fight card, and there's 18 fighters sitting around in a dressing room and no promoter's license. Like everybody's hands are wrapped, you're ready to go, but no license to fight. No license to fuck. Same problem. Different terminology. So anyway, so that's what's going on. That allowed me to have the day off with you guys, which I appreciate. Before we get into, we're gonna talk some boxing. It's a big boxing weekend. We're gonna talk about how Frank's training is going and everything. I asked Mikey, our producer, to bring up Frank's Instagram because we took this photo together today. That's us and Aaron there. He's Dudjits on Instagram, the 5 of us there, and we're replicating a solemn pose there. Why are we doing that, Frank?
That's because our strength and conditioning coach, Adrian, who's known as it's at Aram.
Yeah, Aram Strength.
Strength, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the day before when we all took a photo. Can we pull that one up? That'll probably add to the humor. It's down. It's the first one on the left.
That one.
There we go.
That's
So you
hilarious.
can see here, all of us are worked out real hard, trained, and I have a nice smile. Look at Reyes' smile. We got the Jits has a good smile going, and Horne there got. All of us have, we're all smiling.
Yeah.
And then there's Adrian.
He's like, what are you mad about? What are you mad
He's just sitting in the
bro?
middle. It looks like I feel like we're about to be in a rap video or something.
No, I'll tell you what this looks like. This looks like when like the DEA brings in some international fugitive. You're the 4 officers that have caught him.
Absolutely.
He's the guy that
100%. We got him.
He's the
guy with the 30 kilos of coke that we just busted. Absolutely.
He's getting extradited.
He's not happy.
So go back to our photo there, the one we took today in homage to Adrian there.
You couldn't
Yeah.
make practice, so
Yeah.
as a customary suit, when you're not there, we bust your balls even worse.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, I look like the kid who forgot his gym bag. But I wanted to pull.
That's your tough guy pose, huh?
It's not your
You kind of look like you were just kind of flicking your hair out of your face right now.
Yeah, I don't know what I was doing there. I was really wishing I had my rash guard on at that
Reyes
point.
looks like we're about to have IS called on.
Yeah, so I could look official.
IS is coming.
But I just wanted to point out, though, Frank, a couple of the comments on your Instagram. Look at what the first no, back up. The first comment there says, Richard Hunter is the best backpack guy in the business. And then the next comment after that says, that should be one of Frank's keys to victory, having the best backpack man in MMA. So people are starting to recognize
They
this
understand you.
overlooked
They understand.
niche aspect
That's
of
right.
a camp. You
I
know?
told you we already had an incident early in camp when you weren't there.
No, I know. That's what I'm
See?
saying. I mean, listen, there was a day and age, you're talking about like with Adrian, there was a day and age where, somebody had to be the first MMA fighter to have a strength and conditioning coach. They didn't always have those.
Yeah.
And then the first successful guy had one, and then they're like, oh, well, now everybody's got to have one.
That's right.
And that's probably where we're going
Breaking
with
new
this.
grounds, man.
Probably where we're going with my backpack specialty. So it was a...
Well, we have it in boxing. I mean, Floyd's got one of the most famous backpack guys.
Till now.
Yeah, well,
What's his name?
Yeah.
David Levi. But, I mean,
No one else knows it.
Yeah.
Asked him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, what was
everybody
his
in
name?
the boxing world knows who he is.
Yeah. Does he have any other roles, or is it just backpack?
Well,
Just
he carried a lot of.
Wait a minute, is he the backpack guy with the money that go to
Yes.
strip clubs? Yeah, that's a little different than I think what Richard's going to be playing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. He's the guy that has to carry around that. So he's more like the Louis Vuitton purse guy.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Isn't that what Connor picked up at the press conference?
Well, Connor tried, but
well, no, he took. Don't you remember? He opened it up and he pulled whatever was that. See, right there was a guy, David Levi, who took his eye off of the backpack. See, that would never happen because I
was
would
getting
never
my
be.
protein powder.
No, I would never be out of possession of the backpack. Exactly.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
well, I
just
don't think David was in charge of the Toronto one.
Oh, he had like his understudy or
Yeah.
something. Well, see, that's another thing, too.
Back
I'm
back.
not one of these guys, Frank, and you know this
not a
when
part-timer.
we worked out our terms. I don't farm this stuff out. I'm not like one of these guys who, my name is on it, but you only see me fight night, and the rest of the time you're dealing with one of my lackeys. No, I'm there. I'm there to
When you
do
got the Hunter backpack, you
Yeah.
get the Hunter backpack.
Yeah,
That's right.
Well, James, you're Frank's longtime sparring partner, and I saw you guys rolling around today. So give us a little layman's perspective here on how the champ is looking.
Oh, I think he's progressing great for this training camp. I think he's right on schedule. Looks awesome, man. Every training session, it's just looks better and better. And I think Fedor's definitely going to have his hands full.
Yes, that's the plan.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
plan. Can we bring me up a little bit, by the way? Something about bringing James in made me, and my ego can't handle that. Yes, thank you. Okay, that sounds a lot better. Sorry, I'm producing on the fly here as we mix. All right, Angelo. Now,
Can I just say this about James? 'Cause
Yeah.
James is like bragging about himself. But I was just talking about this the other day. Where, being around the Pacquiao camps for so long, James is really like our boo boy. Boo Boy Fernandez is one of the most important people that Manny Pacquiao has in his entire camp. He was the confidant, the advisor. He was the guy that was getting hit a lot, would hold mitts when Freddie wasn't around. And he knew Pacquiao's Taekwondo background. I mean, like all kinds of stuff. And really, like Jay, like even on this camp, I started going, damn, dude, I didn't know you were that good with all of your, it's amazing to see him. This vegan stuff must really be working because your movements is amazing. Like on bottom, I'm like, Jesus.
He was
this
good
guy.
before he converted.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm impressed.
No, I
I'm very
appreciate
impressed.
that, man. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the compliment.
I'm just glad James hasn't kicked my ass in all this time that I've known him, because I just realized today, after you've seen my stand-up a handful of times, right?
Yeah.
He pulls his shirt off today, and I realize he's got the "Only God Can Judge Me" tattoo. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
James deals with me, he'll deal with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
You find that funny, right? It's a clever observation. It's a clever observation for those who have seen my act.
That wasn't on the list of topics when I was giving it to the topic list when I was coming on. No, Man, I get it, man. I get that not everyone sees it my way, so it's all good. But now that I'm a vegan,
Yes.
I have another thing
Yeah.
on top of it that not everyone sees my way.
Oh, yeah,
so,
yeah. No, that's
so
totally
I'm
true.
really doing well when it comes to
Yeah.
party conversations.
Are you going to get a vegan tattoo? You still got a little space.
I actually, yeah. I thought
Yeah.
You know, I think plant-based is more,
Yeah.
you know, maybe vegan as fuck, something like that. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know.
Vegan, yeah. You know what? I don't. You know,
I like that. Vegan as fuck.
Yeah.
You gotta stay kind of thug, you know?
Right? Yeah.
Well, when you think of what that's going to be, let me know, because I don't have any tattoos. Maybe I'll make that my first tattoo.
All right, there we
go
go.
together and get like a vegan themed tattoo.
I like that. I like that.
All right.
I mean, that's always a testament to how people are in our group. We can all have different thoughts, and approaches on life.
Yeah.
James is a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And we never ever butt heads on that. There's times that the
You're
topic-
not, Frank?
Yeah, we get, we'll broach the topic and
Yeah.
things are good go, but we've never left that conversation angry at each other. Never been mad like, oh, so you think this? Yeah, well, that's how I take it. Like, oh, okay, well, this is how I look at it. And it's like, all right, cool, man. So hey, where we're gonna go eat? You know, and that's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. You bring that up because you know what? Let's jump into this right now. We're going to talk boxing here in a second, but I can't ignore a perfectly natural, unscripted segue like that. So we on our last episode, and James, I know you weren't listening. On our last episode, we had Tara LaRosa on, who Invicta fighter. And the primary reason we had her on was because she had some really strong opinions about the whole Parkland, Florida shooting incident, and strong opinions in the sense of she's an Alex Jones devotee, and she was retweeting conspiracy theories about it and all that kind of stuff. So we had her on, and really to kind of talk about that. But of course, Frank, along the way, we start talking about, well, what would be common sense reform, right? And you start talking about banning high-capacity magazines. I mean, some ideas, some things like that, whether or not an age limit should be raised. She talked about whether or not teachers should be armed. We got into all the bullet points of it. I actually left that conversation, because I like Tara a lot, talking to her. You and I haven't even talked about this, Frank. I actually left that conversation thinking, I hope we weren't, or me anyway, I hope I wasn't too kind of easy on her in terms of some of the conspiracy stuff, because she didn't really, once we all started talking about it, she was just kind of like, well, it's just an interesting thought, or it's something you hear people say. She wasn't like going to the mat with it. And so I kind of left it. And so as I was driving home, I thought, boy, I hope people who listen to that don't think that it was too much of a free pass. Like, I was worried that maybe it sounded too sort of just guns above everything else kind of thing, right? Okay. But we got this email. So I want to read you this email and tell me what you think about this. This is from Scott Terra. Scott, thanks for emailing. He says, I really enjoy the show, so thank you. I just wanted to opine about the gun control issues you discussed on your recent show. There are so many things to discuss, but here are just a few thoughts. One, I think that it's such a poor business acumen to ostracize your core audience, i.e., your listeners are very pro-gun. Number two, why give an inch the left doesn't? Number three, for instance, a .50 caliber weapon has never been used in the commission of a crime other than arguably by the U.S. government. Number four, you want to talk about lobbyists in Washington. Try checking out AIPAC, by far the most powerful and compromised of individuals, loyalty to a foreign country. And then the last one was, or his last point was, I could keep going and going, but by at least forwarding you this, my blood pressure has gone back down a little bit. Thanks, Scott in Vacaville, California. Okay, so the reason that I bring this up, and I thought it was a great segue, because you were talking about different religious beliefs, being able to have the conversation, things like that. I mean, you and I, Frank, have already talked at length about this over the years, about the very point you just made and why we like having these conversations. But just to address some of these points, my first thought was when I saw the first point, which was, I think it's a poor business decision to ostracize your core audience because your listeners are very pro-gun. Would that be the reason anyone would listen to us? Because they think we make good business decisions? Like, would that ever be the appeal? Like, has anybody ever come up to you and said, Frank, you're my favorite fighter because I think you're a good businessman?
Well, yeah, no, I'm not quite seeing the correlation there, but I guess the meaning of what he's trying to say is that if we come off anti-gun, which I'm obviously not an anti-gun individual.
Not to me.
That we could ostracize individuals from it.
Right.
All I was pretty much bringing that conversation is that you're right. There are guys on the left that don't want to give an inch, but I do think that us on the right could start making concessions to make things a little bit more realistic. I really don't, for right there when he says the 50 caliber, you're right. I don't know of anybody that's used a 50 caliber in an assault.
Do you know anybody?
Take that off the list. But the high capacity magazines, I'm really, as I'm getting more into this conversation, I don't really see a reason for having, there should be no reason you should be able to buy a 100 drum magazine. There has been many situations where I can point at an individual that shot at a mass shooting, that because he was able to not have to reload his firearm with another magazine, was able to cause a lot more damage and more death. Whereas if he had to work with a 10-round magazine and reload, could he still kill as many people? Yeah, but he's going to have to be trained. I'm going to make it more difficult for you. And I look at everything as statistics. It's like fighting. There's nothing I can do to guarantee that I'm going to win a fight. But there's things I can do to up the percentages in my favor. There's no guarantee I'm not going to have a heart attack. But if I smoke 2-3 packs of cigarettes every day, I eat hamburger for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and never even walk outside the door, I'm probably increasing the chances I'm going to have a heart attack.
Right.
So not that, there's any perfect solution out there, but my thought is that if we both have this mentality that like, well, I'm not going to move an inch, you're not going to move an inch, we're going to have this, that's just not how conversations ever happen. I think compromise and conversations occur with both people say, well, let me see where you're coming from. Could it work? Well, let's see the stats behind it. Let's look at the science behind what we're discussing. How often does that firearm actually being used cause fatalities? Could it have been, is there something we could have done? Like I don't know if I'm so keen on the raising, for example, raising the age limit of buying a firearm from 18 to 21. There's a lot of young guys that go out hunting. I think there's a ton more people that are 18 buying firearms for the right purposes than there are for people buying for malignant purposes. But if you're going to be a scumbag to go hurt someone with a rifle, you can't buy it, you're 21, well, they're going to buy it from somebody else, from a second person anyways. They'll probably acquire it illegally. So I'm not keen on that one because I think that only really hinders the good guys who are the responsible gun owners of the world going out, waiting until they're 18. I remember when I was 18, I bought my first handgun. It was a good experience. I went and bought a Glock. It was a great thing. I really researched the firearm. I really wanted this particular Glock 21. Everything about it was something that I had been looking forward to for many years as a teenager. So I think that it's okay to have a conversation. I don't know why we have to get angry.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, all fair points for discussion, what you just said. But to me, if I ever found myself harboring the thought, he's not saying what I'm thinking, and that pisses me off, I would be introspective about that. I would be concerned that I was having that thought. In fact, I have the opposite reaction. If I go too long without hearing somebody say something I don't agree with, I start looking at what I'm listening to. And that, like a lot of times, media coverage, things like that. Like if I'm not hearing that, that's why I'll listen to Fox News. I'll make sure I want to know what this other perspective is.
And my always point to individuals that get too worked up in a conversation is if you really have a good factual base or base that you've built your opinion off of, I have no problem, for example, having a religious conversation with individuals. I don't attack people. I'm very okay with it. Hey, bring something up. If they ask me because religion can be a very sensitive subject, I pretty much play defense the whole time. I let someone else, if you want to bring up a point and you really want to know what I think about it, you can ask me. If you don't, I'm not going to let you. It's not my job. And I don't
pull guard. You let them ground and
I don't get off on hurting people's feelings. I really don't. And sitting there and going, well, you know what you think, hold on a second. That's really stupid because here I got A, B, C, D, and it's like, why do that? But because I feel comfortable with my knowledge on the topic, and I'm always open to new insight, I always tell people, hey, if you show me something that I'm not aware of, I'm in, man, But if, so I think that when you have information and you feel confident in what you feel about, I think it disarms that anger.
Yeah, well, and for example, I got this tweet a couple of weeks ago from Belvin Flipmunk. He was responding to one of my tweets. It's, spoiler alert, if you don't already follow me on Twitter, you will see some tweets that are critical of the president. So that happened on this particular day, and Belvin tweeted back to me, and he just said, and he wasn't calling any names or anything, he just said, you know, if you weren't so critical of the president, you wouldn't alienate your listeners who ideologically disagree with you. But I responded to him, and I said, I do want listeners who I'm reading my own tweet now. I do want listeners who ideologically disagree, but from those, I only want ones who have the stomach for debate. No different than ideological differences in MMA opinions. If you can't defend your position, exactly, we're not for you. Like MMA, don't get mad at my attack, work on your defense. You know, what if we all went to jiu-jitsu every day and no one ever submitted you? You know, we'd be handing out black belts all day, and guess what? It wouldn't mean anything because none of us would have gotten better because of it. And this guy retweeted that. So that was obviously a guy who, you know, appreciated my response. And, you know, Scott may appreciate my response too. Hopefully he does. But
really, the start of anything I've learned new in my life has always usually came from somebody else. Another human being has said something to maybe contrary to what I said, and I'll look over at them and go, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. And then it gives me the starting point to go research it. Information is phenomenal on the internet now. You can find just about anything. You know, you used to have to go to Barnes & Nobles or, you know, sit down, but now you can, you know, the touch of your fingers is all the information in the world, but it's other people's opinions and having conversation that kind of start growth. If you don't really, I mean, come on, really? You already know at this point in your life, there's nothing more you're going to learn. You've topped out, you know? That's kind of a scary proposition.
And, you know, we could, I mean, to his point, by being ourselves, we probably do not put business first. I'll give him that. I mean, and in more ways than one. Like even just
it's funny that someone that says that it would be the same people who'd be like, well, you know, Trump, he's just not politically correct. So,
yeah,
wait a minute.
Says what's on his mind.
So I can't say what's on my mind, but someone else. So you would want me to conform to popular thought process of whoever I feel like my fan base is. Yeah. So I can keep listeners clicking instead of actually speaking my mind.
Yeah, because if we were going to design it that way, if we were sitting down and, you know, we haven't done our first episode yet, and we're sitting down and going, okay, how do we, you know, really try to maximize this from a business perspective? I would go, okay, our demo is going to be white males, 18 to 54. So first of all, let's don't, you know, nothing other than conservative politics. Frank, I know you're a gun guy, which is good. Let's talk about guns. But one thing, Frank, I know sometimes you say that there are common sense approaches to gun control. Don't bring that up. Just go all the way to the right. I'm going to completely conceal. I'm going to be like a gay dude in the 50s. I'm going to lead a completely double life. Wow. I'm not even going to, yeah, I have a whole different look. I'm going to wear my camo when I come on here.
We have to take you down to the wife to get you to groomed up.
Cut my hair in a mullet. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to, you know, we could do all that. But here's the thing. You wouldn't get us because the whole way this show was born was out of a genuine friendship between the two of us and us having these conversations off the air and just saying, let's record them and share them. And you know what? There are a lot of loyal listeners out there who have been with us since day one for a couple of years now, and we get new ones all the time, and we appreciate you guys. But I know and so there are guys that disagree with us. I mean, me in particular, like our buddy Joe Cockrell. I mean, I just say, it's funny, my girlfriend Jennifer knows Joe's name now just from the constant Instagram debates and stuff like that. One of our best listeners. He and I completely, well, I mean, almost all the time, disagree on political stuff, but that's why he's listening. That's why I like having him listen, because we have that conversation. And then the one other thing I wanted to bring up about Scott's email was when he does, you know, when he says wait a second, you said the NRA is a big political lobby, but what about, and then he points out one that's bigger, right? That's not answering the issue. It's like when I said to Tara, I said, do you have a problem with big political lobbies? Just a philosophical question, not NRA, not, you know, insurance, whatever. And she said, well, what about George Soros? What about the money he's putting in? But rather than play the what about game, just be able to say, fundamentally, because I'll say it, that I have a problem with big political lobbies. Whether they're on my side or whether they're on someone else's side, we need to get rid of all of that. And I think that's the point you and I were agreeing on our last episode.
It's kind of like when you were a kid getting in trouble. If you could point something out that your brother did,
yeah.
It's like, well, hold on a second. Yeah, but hey, I might have drawn on the couch, but Robbie over here, he shaved the cat.
Yeah.
So like, get the attention away from me, but it doesn't take away from the fact of what you did, or what you are doing, or what the situation is. Anytime there's a problem, that's not really a debate. To be able to deflect from the situation and go, okay, yeah, this might be a scumbag, but that's a bigger scumbag. It's like, well, but hold on a second.
Yeah.
We'll get to that when we get to it. Let's one problem at a time. This one's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, try applying that approach when you get pulled over by a cop. While he's writing up the ticket. Hey, what about that guy? He's speeding. That one. Well, what about this one?
That one's picking up a hooker.
Yeah, I'm writing you a ticket right now. And I also think that it's interesting that because we focus on combat sports, that honestly, I see a tremendous correlation between following combat sports and following politics. I always make that joke that to me they're kind of one and the same. But the same reasons they appeal to me strategically. I mean, the reasons I like to watch a jiu-jitsu tournament is the same reason that I like to watch discourse and debate, is to see, okay, he's got him there. What's the comeback going to be? How's he going to work around this? How's he going to try to defend that point? So, I don't know. I just hopefully, I like the fact Scott said, ostracized, but to me, we engaged him because he was listening and he wrote the email. And then we read the email. Now he's hearing his email read. Now we're addressing it.
The other organization he said?
Oh, the AIPAC.
No, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
And now when we leave here, I have something to go Google.
Look it up, right.
And I get to go information.
Yeah.
But I didn't get angry that Scott didn't like what we were saying.
Right,
I just listened to what he had to say. I go, okay, you know what? You're right. The 50 caliber thing, I don't know who was putting it on the table, but take that off the table. No one's using 50 calibers to kill people, in the U.S. So probably not something that needs to be regulated. Other things that obviously that we can see in the news are being used. Let's bring those back into the conversation. And then when he brought that up, I'm like, oh, I don't know much about that. Now I have something to go look up and find out about.
That's the right approach. Scott was inspired to do that by our last episode. He wrote the email. We filled out a segment with it, and it kept Angelo off the mic. Our listeners he's a hero to these listeners.
Now, when you were at the part where you were talking about the whole, if I'm listening or if you're quiet and you're listening, that means that that you're either talking too much or maybe you're more correct or something like that. It was like an hour ago when you said it.
I'm a little verbose. Yeah.
Okay. So I was just gonna say this.
That was a good passive aggressive comeback, by the way, too. I'm giving you shit, and you're like, it was something you said. I don't know. It was an hour ago.
So,
it's good, Angela.
So here's my thing. I want to make sure I point out.
Yeah.
So does that mean that when we were driving to L.A. and I was arguing with you about the fact that Frank is actually the greatest heavyweight that the UFC had, when you were being quiet and listening to me, did that mean you were agreeing with every point I was making?
No. I'll tell you what I was trying to do. I was trying to hear Vinnie Vincent interviewed on the radio because no one had heard from him in 25 years since he left Kiss, James. I mean, this interview, the guy was like the Howard Hughes of rock and roll, and he was about to be interviewed on the radio for the first time in like decades. Anybody heard? So, and I made the mistake. I committed the cardinal sin of suggesting that on that evening, if Stipe Miocic beat Francis Ngannou, which he did, that by the time Stipe retires, he might be considered the greatest heavyweight of all time.
And what happened?
And you would have thought that I was a traitor to my best friend over here. That I thought for a minute I needed to call Frank and apologize to him. I was like, what did I do? But then I recalled that 2 weeks earlier, Frank had made the same point.
I'm self-hating individual.
You made the decision to do this in a road trip with Angelo.
So James, like, let me get this straight. Yeah. You were in a closed, small area.
Because I've been on a road trip with Angelo, and we played tunes the whole time, as loud as I can.
Well,
I'm just saying, I brought out some really great stats. Did I not?
No, you did. You were armed with your stats.
And let me just say this, champ. Should you win this entire Grand Prix, which, of Of course, I'm always the positive one here. But let's say it happens. All right.
Okay.
I am going to really rip into anyone who says,
Yeah.
not the greatest.
We'll all hear from him.
I want an entire show dedicated to me just saying, greatest heavyweight ever.
We'll all be doing that thing. I don't even know if I've told Angelo this story or not. I was at a press conference, it was a post-fight deal for one of the UFCs, and we all sit in this banquet room, and the fighters come in, they sit on the dais, and we interview them, and there's like rows of tables we all sit at with our laptops there. So we're waiting for the fighters to come in. We're all sitting there at our laptops, and I don't remember, I'm sorry, Angelo, I don't remember what prediction you had gotten correct, but you had predicted an outcome, and it had come to fruition that night.
It was Michael Bisping over Anderson Silva.
Might have been that one. No, I was there live. It was just the one I would have been live for. But anyway, whatever it was, you had correctly predicted it, and I got a text message from you. And I'm sitting there, and I go, I said aloud, "Boy, Angelo, I knew I'd be hearing from you," or something like that on that prediction. And without anybody turning their back, turning around to me, there's like 2 rows of MMA journalists in front of me. Everybody still got their back to me, working on their laptops. They hear me say it, and they all just hold up their phones like this, like they had all just gotten the same one.
That's funny.
Do you put them in a group text?
I do. Actually, I do. At times when I really want to push it.
All right. So with that, let's segue to Angelo's segment here, because we have Angelo on to prime us for a big boxing weekend. It's going to be a big boxing weekend. And I'll tell you one good thing that did come out of that road trip with Angelo and I sharing a room was we got into a lot of hardcore boxing talk, because I covered boxing before I got into MMA.
And that's what I was saying.
And I still love boxing, and I try to pay as much attention to it as I can. As obviously with the number of MMA fights that there are to cover UFC alone these days, that it's hard to find time for it all. So Angelo, tell us why this weekend is not just a big UFC weekend with UFC 222, but why it's also a big boxing weekend.
So no disrespect to UFC 222, but it's a pay-per-view, right? So I honestly don't know if it's even going to hit the 200,000 pay-per-view buys.
Okay.
The Max Holloway falling out hurt it, but it also happens to fall on the weekend of one of the biggest boxing events of this year. Both HBO and Showtime, on their free network, as long as you subscribe to them, are showing both big-time fights.
Okay.
I'll just lightly touch upon the HBO one because I want to talk more about the Showtime one.
We'll lead with that
one. The HBO one is the return of Kovalev, right? And Kovalev's fighting for a belt. And then on the co-main event...
Well, wait a second. What weight class?
168.
Okay.
It's I believe he might have moved up now to 175. Okay. 175. But I think the better fight of that one, not that I'm saying his opponent is McCalkin, 21 wins.
Call him McCalkin. No?
But, Sergey's supposed to win that fight. But I think the better fight on that one will be the undercard, which is Bivol versus Sullivan Barrera. And Barrera is the guy who lost to Andre Ward as the #1 contender for the IBF.
Okay.
So that'll be a really good match. But that's happening New York, Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
Right across the way at Barclays Center is the biggest heavyweight fight of the year right now.
All right. That sounds like something we need to know about.
That's the one that everybody should be tuning in for.
Tell us about that one.
It's Deontay Wilder, 39-0, 38 knockouts. And I believe he has knocked out now every opponent he has faced, because his one non-knockout was Bermain Stavern, and then he knocked him out in the first round on his last fight.
So he avenged that. Yeah, okay.
So there's the man right there, 6'7". His coach is Olympic gold medalist Mark Breland. Amazing. But he is fighting maybe one of the greatest Cuban amateurs we've ever seen in Luis King Kong Ortiz over here. 28-0.
You mean professionals?
24 knockouts. What's that?
One of the greatest Cuban heavyweight professionals.
Yeah, but also one of the greatest Cuban
when he was an amateur.
No, because he was 300 and hold on, I'll give you the stat right now.
How many gold medalists in the heavyweight division from Cuba?
No.
You got Stevenson, Savant.
Relax, man. Hold on. All right.
Hold on.
Look, Mr. Argument guy.
I'm not arguing. I'm just pointing out there was some. I mean, that's just hard because Cuba, on the amateur level, through the 70s and 80s, had the best heavyweights.
So we talked about like Rigondeaux, and he got all those wins, right? And the amateurs, and then we talk about our guy Lomachenko, tons of wins, right? 343 wins in the amateurs. this dude's badass, man. He didn't even turn pro until he was like 30, and then he's smoking everyone, right? So the hard thing that happens with him is there was some TRT issues, so I think that's why they stripped his belt. But he's an Al Heyman guy now, which I think helped in him getting this super fight with Deontay Wilder. Ring Magazine has Ortiz as the ranked number 5 heavyweight in the world, and Ring Magazine has Deontay Wilder as the ranked number 2 heavyweight in the world. Now, the reason why this matters, too, for the Phone Booth Fighting listeners, is at the end of this month, we're going to see Anthony Joshua, who is the number 1 heavyweight in the world, and he holds the majority of the belts. He's the one that just beat Vladimir Klitschko and what could possibly be the greatest heavyweight fight we've seen in the last, decade, at least, right?
That's all.
90,000 seats, the whole bit. And he's fighting the WBO champion who trains here in Vegas, Joseph Parker, from New Zealand, right? So that's a big unification. So the ideal scenario for the boxing world would be Anthony Joshua wins. He's undefeated. He's the big ticket seller. World heavyweight champion fighting the now, if he does beat Ortiz, he would be 40-0. Deontay Wilder in this huge super fight that could be not just one fight, but it could be like kind of like a Ali Frazier of our generation type event. So that's what that's what we're all waiting to see. What makes this fight a must watch is this guy, even though he's 38. I looked up Bloody Elbow. Bloody Elbow has Ortiz winning by knockout. So this is one of those things where it's like, we're about to find out how good Wilder really is.
So between Ortiz and Wilder, 2 undefeated records. What was it?
39-0 with 38 knockouts. This is Wilder.
And the other
28-0 with 24 knockouts.
Okay, so 70-ish fights between them, all victories, almost all knockouts. Here's the question you always have to ask in boxing. So the question I'll pose to you: how legit are those records? So out of the 30 or out of the 40, how many of those are, can we say the first 10 were, not super top quality, or am I wrong? Is this totally legit records?
This is heavyweight boxing. Yeah. And again, as you know, like you said, it's not like an MMA where you could build up people's records. And in boxing, there is that step up and kind of like minor leagues leading up to the major leagues. But in all reality, Anthony Joshua, the reason why he's now considered, okay, man, you're on the cusp of being one of the best, is because he beat Klitschko, and he didn't beat a crappy Klitschko. That Klitschko would have beaten anyone else that night. And Joshua was the one that got up from basically a knockout. He got up from that, came back to win. So that's why everybody's high on Joshua.
Sure.
We haven't had that moment with Wilder yet. And this is the guy that could give him that moment. He's southpaw. He's crafty, very accurate, great body punching, great straight left.
So we get a great fight between Ortiz and Wilder, at least on paper, and the added intrigue of the winner then having a clear path for Joshua.
If Joshua beats Joseph Parker.
Yes.
And that's the other thing that we don't know, too. Is, it's easy.
And that fight happens when?
March 31st.
Okay.
And that's also, I believe that'll be on Showtime. Also. But this is what Showtime does now. Showtime pretty much, you've been into boxing forever. So now you know that the powerhouse really is Showtime Boxing. Yeah.
There's been a changing of the guard with that because 10, 15 years ago, HBO definitely had the advantage there, didn't they?
Yeah. So that's why, again, free TV. This is going to be a great match. If you actually want to see 2 skilled heavyweights that will show you great boxing positioning on top of the chance that a knockout could happen, this is the fight to see, man. It's like watching a time bomb go off.
All right. Well, I like the fact that there's more violence for me to watch on TV this weekend. That's the encouragement I've gotten from you.
Now, can I ask you, Chip, who do you think's going to win that one? Just,
Honestly, Dante is extremely powerful. I just think the experience of Ortiz is actually going to sleep on people. I think a lot of people don't realize how good Luis is, and I'm actually thinking the Cuban's going to pull it off.
So he's picking the nationalistic pick.
I'm being a homer.
He's being a homer. What about you, Richard Hunter, who has been in such great fights live like De La Hoya Mayweather?
I don't know if I can really make an educated pick here. I mean, I've seen more of Wilder, but I've learned the lesson of picking somebody just because I'm more familiar with them as opposed to them being an unknown. So I mean, we've actually got some of that to talk about.
And actually, what's Wilder's reach?
It's shorter. It's 1 inch shorter than Victor. Than Luis.
That might be the first time Wilder in his fight has ever fought somebody that has a longer reach than him. I mean, factors like that count. I mean, Deontay is built. I mean, he's 6'5", about 225. The guy could have played any sport he wanted to. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal athlete. But I think his athleticism helps him a lot in the boxing matches.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
With Ortiz is a bear of a guy.
Yes,
hits hard.
Yes,
but I think he's more experienced as a boxer.
Yeah.
He's had more rounds, man.
Very technical.
Yeah.
How does he do against left-handers? Because you said,
that's the thing is we don't know how well Wilder will really do because this guy's a for real southpaw, and he's 343 wins, man. Yeah. You don't just like shake a stick at 343 amateur wins. Yeah. And then plus he has 28-0, 24.
Not like the fellow Stevenson who won 3 gold medals.
Yes, I got you. Yes.
Not to take us off topic, but I've always wondered about that expression that Angelo just used. My grandfather used to say that too, and it's like I wonder if anyone ever did. If there was somebody who made an original claim where they were kind of overselling it, you know what I mean? Like I haven't had a drink in 2 days, and somebody literally took a stick and just shook it at him.
And where does that
sign of disapproval?
Yeah. Shake a stick at it.
Yeah, that's nothing to shake a stick at. Yeah, that's like
that's something you can shake a stick.
We're gonna look that up. I'm sure somewhere on the internet.
I'd like to have a stick like that I just do that whenever.
Yeah, you love to judge.
I'll judge you with my stick when I shake it at you. I do love to judge.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Hey, so I was going to say, too, unlike Coach James Horne over here, I do listen to the podcast.
Yes, thank you.
I heard what you said, you little bastard. Challenge accepted.
Oh.
What was the challenge?
I'm going to try to drop him.
He's trying to drop me into the body.
Yes. Okay, hang on. You can tell this is where you bring his mic down a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I think I'll get it before the end. I'll get you to take a knee before the end of this camp.
Angelo on a podcast is like when you hear the guy interviewed that did the sound for Pavarotti's concert, and they're like, we didn't even have to put a mic on him. The voice was so powerful. He could just hit those high notes, and it would reverberate throughout the arena. Yeah. Okay, so that's I forgot.
When are they fighting again?
That challenge.
Saturday. What time?
Saturday.
I know, but what time?
Barclays Center. You're going to be at dinner or something. It's at 7.
I'll expect updates.
Yes,
all right.
I'll give it to you.
All right, boys. Thanks very much for coming by. Everybody follow Angelo on Instagram, Angelo Reyes Boxing. Yep. And then, of course, the sneaker black belt on Instagram.
Do you like his photo with the sneaker black belt?
Go click on the sneaker black belt.
Click on sneaker black belt's Instagram.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Not very many people could do this.
That's James's.
It was the shoes that
Instagram.
gave him another extra power.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. Mikey will pull it up here. By the way, I was thinking about James. You're the sneaker black belt.
Yes.
And I was thinking that you know what? If when I am 72 years old and I finally get my black belt, I'm going to be the vegan black belt.
That's good.
I like that.
Yeah.
There you go.
You see it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there he is. Armbarring Frank.
What are those?
With wearing his he's wearing shoes on the mat,
right?
Which is
so those
real
are
no.
He jumped
those
from the
Jordans,
ground out.
Baby.
You didn't see him touch the mat.
What edition
Jordan 11 lows Concords, which those came out about 4 or 5 years ago at this point, and as you can see, they look like they just came fresh out of the box.
Can I ask you, because you're really into the sneaker thing?
Yeah.
How much would those cost if we tried to buy it like on the
those right now probably I could look it up, but those probably, I'm guessing they're probably $330, something like that, $350, something like that.
Wow.
Those aren't anything crazy.
You are James.
He loves his shoes, man.
Yeah.
When we were in Australia, I fucked up, almost hurt our friendship because we got done eating and the hotel was like 1.5 miles away.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
So I was like, fuck it, I want to go for a walk. You know what I mean? Like, you just ate a meal. Let's just kind of stretch our legs out a little bit. Also stepped outside and it was raining. And he already didn't want to go for the walk. He's like, no, it looks like a good rain. Like, no problem. So we're sitting there walking. It's raining and he takes care of his shit immaculately, right?
Yeah.
So before you know it, James walks inside of a grocery store. He comes out with the grocery bags with his shoes, like
Absolutely. These were Nike.
he was walking.
These were Nike IDs, which means I went on Nike.com and I custom made them with my whole stuff. So yeah, man. I mean,
so you got a pair of booties on, looking like your wife just had a baby, and you came out of the delivery room, right?
Yeah. And then I mean, of course, I'm trying to relate and understand, but anybody that even knows me one little bit's like.
So
you're lucky my shoes match.
So this will speak to Angelo's heritage. James, you are like the Imelda Marcos of jiu-jitsu.
That's true.
Right?
That's true, actually.
With the shoe collection.
You do have a lot of shoes, bro.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I'm wearing self-lacing shoes. They're actually mechanical.
Oh, I saw him playing with this. I saw him playing with this earlier.
So
I was wondering what that sounded like.
My shoes actually.
Shut the fuck up. How dope
That's like
those,
some Back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
It just laces itself.
So if you're watching on our YouTube channel, James he's taken his shoe off and he's hitting a button on the side. And when you say do you mean the laces?
They tighten. Yeah.
Okay.
So
when you hit the button.
Yeah, when I put them on.
Yeah.
When I hit the button over here I can't show it to everyone.
Right.
When I hit the button over here.
Yeah. Oh, I see that.
You see how they tighten on my foot?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So they actually, when I put them on.
Yeah.
Sorry, when I put the shoes on.
Yeah.
They actually will sense my foot in the shoe, and then they tighten on their own. So as soon as I put them on, I don't have to push anything.
Yeah.
I just stand up, they sense my foot's in them, and they tighten.
Is there any risk of mechanical malfunction where they cinch on their own, they tighten up, and before the EMTs can get there, the blood's been cut off?
So that is actually the #1 question when people see these shoes.
Yes.
Like, well, what happens if they just keep tightening?
What if they go on their own? What if you're having
and
a
what
nap?
I say
is
I'm going to be rich for a long time.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
I'm going to be living a good life. I don't need feet at that point. So, yeah, I'll be okay without feet. So.
All those
class
shoes.
action, the personal injury lawsuit in his future. All right, James Horne and Angelo Reyes have been our guests. Thanks for coming by, guys. Hope you enjoyed yourselves.
Appreciate it.
It was fun. It's fun.
Frank, a big thank you to our guests who were in studio with us. Before we part company, though, tell everybody why there is an Amazon banner on the front of phoneboothfighting.com.
Well, hey, it's a very easy way to help us out here at the show. Click through our Amazon banner on our webpage, phoneboothfighting.com, and by doing so, you'll be transferred over to the normal Amazon page, do all your shopping for your wants and needs, but a small percentage at no extra charge to you comes back to here at the show.
Also, you can check out our other sponsors by clicking on the sponsor link right there at phoneboothfighting.com, and any support that you show our sponsors also is a great way to support our show. You can also purchase your official Phone Booth Fighting merchandise at phoneboothfighting.com through the online store. Frank, tell them how to follow us on social media.
If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can find us at Phone Booth Fighting. Snapchat or Twitter, just Phone Booth Fight.
That's right. All right. Obviously, a big weekend of fights. We are going to see you guys on the other side. We'll recap it all. First episode of next week, I will be there live at UFC 222 Saturday night, and obviously I'll have a lot of post-fight audio and perspective to bring back to the show when we do that. All right. For Frank Mir, I'm Richard Hunter. Thanks to Mikey producing, doing a great job over there. Thanks to you for listening. We'll see you next time right here on Phone Booth Fighting.